Hey guys, I'm excited to be here today and for us all to talk about Catalyst and the Catalyst Coaching Project. We've been talking about Catalyst, the four of us, for a long time. The two of you, Matt and Brian, for far longer. But I kind of want to jump in here and first talk about what brings each of you to the table, the virtual table that we're sitting at right now, and to this process and this project that we've been working on. And then kind of we'll step into a little bit of a more specific thing is where each of us are today, right now, with our kind of personal growth and fitness journey. But, quick intro for each person, and I'll intro you and then just talk about how you came to this. And actually, I think we should start with Matt, Coach Matt Nichols, because he's kind of the you're if anything the ringleader or the standard bearer initially of our little crew here, and where Catalyst originated for you and what brings you here to this moment now.
Yeah, George, thanks. It's all my fault. I guess we'll say that. I'm responsible. No, this grew out of a ritual that Brian and I created about 3 years ago, which was to meet weekly for a coffee. And we didn't have a specific intention for those get togethers other than we knew that we both benefited from the fellowship with one another in a space outside of the gym where we were both working together. And oftentimes, some part of the conversation would be a complaint or a question or a problem that we were struggling with, whether that was with a fellow coach or a client or something related to our work, and sometimes even something related to relationships outside of work. And it was just for me such a valuable experience to sit down with Brian and say, hey, here's this thing I'm dealing with, and have him listen, ask some questions, and I would say almost invariably, whether it was Brian speaking up or me speaking up, eventually the conversation would come to, okay, so here is this thing. What control do I have over the situation? What responsibility can I take for the outcome that I want? And am I going to choose to be a leader? Am I going to choose to step into taking responsibility for it rather than complaining or wishing it were different somehow? And, Brian would just so often turn that back around on me and say, okay, but what are you going to do about it? And it was like, dang, it's not my coworker's fault. It's not the client that's a jerk. It's like I have some control over how I communicate what's going on in the situation, what outcome I'm looking for, and how I want us to get there.
And
And that
just
always left me rejuvenated and excited to go and put into practice whatever it was Brian challenged me to do. And we would finish those conversations and say, I wish we had recorded this because I know this would have been valuable for someone else. Yada yada yada. Here we are.
just context, you guys were coaching together,
Yeah, we
and
were at the same gym in Santa Monica, working together in the time right after the pandemic lockdown, as the world was starting to open back up again.
and I was a client there at the time,
Yeah.
and Kevin was also a coach there. But so just kind of like that's the stew where we were all being formed in some of this. And you guys, your initial connection, which I remember you mentioning a lot to me, was like these conversations I'm having with Brian, kind of grew this greater, larger awareness of like coaching, leadership, growth, personal growth, and through fitness, but beyond that. So then let's kick over to Brian, because Brian, obviously you were a part of, you were the second half of those conversations that got us here.
Can you repeat the question, George?
Yeah, can you kind of talk a little bit about how you came into this relationship with Matt and Catalyst and what drew you into these conversations that have been going on now for years? It's 2025, and you guys started having these chats as coaches at the gym in 2020, 2021. So it's been a long simmer to this point, really, for the two of you, but now we're kind of we've slowly formalized our process, and I'm curious what kind of brought you to it initially and has drawn you in so close to this project.
Yeah, that's what I thought the question was. I would say I fell into it, and I mean, we probably remember it differently because I don't know, different people. But the way I remember this all got started was in part how Matt described it, which we thought it would be a good idea to record these conversations. I find personally that when I talk through something, more things come up. And oftentimes I don't learn the lesson until, like a back and forth reflection of your experience and my experience and how maybe I completely misinterpreted what I had felt in whatever moment or whatever thing or situation we were talking about. Oftentimes, we would meet for coffee with a very open slate, and no one really coming to the table with wanting to talk about anything in particular. I mean, I would want to admit that I would go into these conversations uneasy because I didn't really think like what would we talk about like other than the gym and coming up with maybe a couple of things that maybe that we could discuss. Also thinking in the back of my mind, like, are we having these conversations because he wants to talk to me about something that I might be doing wrong? And I think through these conversations, what I realized was things were coming up organically that I felt needed to be shared. Or and not only that, something that maybe we needed to revisit and spend more time on and maybe come back to. Because in the hustle and bustle of being a coach and working with people one on one, the problems and the things that they go through are they're unique. And because they're so unique, like the solutions that we may have for these problems may differ from client to client. And I felt if we were talking about these things, people may want to hear about them, but maybe in a more polished fashion. So the original idea was for us to come together and just talk about things that people at the gym were going through and how we were dealing with them. Maybe it wasn't exactly that was like the exact format, but the idea of the podcast was to support the community at Oak Park or at this gym in Santa Monica. Someone can edit that later, but that was the idea, at least for me.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago, I hadn't planned on leaving my position at the gym. My plan was still to be there for like another 5 at the very least.
And I'm gonna jump in and then go to Kevin but segue because I think it's important to just for those who don't know and introduce and just contextualize. You guys won't probably talk up your quality of coaching, but all three of you are pretty high level coaches. And this gym, even though it services a lot of general population and a huge variance of skill set with people of all ages, of all ranges of ability in its classes, it also has a very like high end element to it. Some of the clientele from pro athletes to people getting in shape for major entertainment events. Like this is a kind of this is a specialized gym, and it has been, and one of the reasons it draws people in is it has been often at the forefront of what's going on in the fitness and the health and fitness space, largely because of the quality of coaches you guys are, but also just kind of the mindset and the approach, and from breath work to a lot of variance in CrossFit training. Like there's a lot of things happening here that are kind of at the edge, I would say, of what is happening in the fitness world, which is part of what brought you guys together. So I want to provide that context a little bit for anybody who doesn't know. And that's part of why you guys and the topics you're discussing are of interest, perhaps. Kevin, I don't know what brought you initially into the community at that gym, but I'm curious what brought you initially into the communication, the larger, this conversation, this ongoing conversation with Matt and Brian.
Right. So, context, George, I joined the gym in 14 and started coaching at 15. moved away in 21. So I have been out of the coaching capacity. I remember the call from our producer. Um, you know, I don't know, end of 23, I guess. We started really diving into this, uh, diving into this with some original content about a year ago. But I remember a call from Max asking that he's been talking to Brian, talking to Matt, working the program with Coach Matt, and then I had been. And this was sort of a subconscious yearning I had to get back into coaching, whether it be at a gym, whether it be privates, whether it be more life coaching, men's coaching. But I had taken a step away when I moved from LA to Austin, so I have not been coaching. And so, whether it be a void I'm trying to fill, I think that's one. Um, we had been working. Matt had been a part of this as well with another coach, a former coach of the gym, for some other skills coaching, leadership coaching. And so I had always taken the path and started at Oak Park, always took the path of personal and professional development, being on the same line, and then wanting to continue that myself, but then also, like I mentioned, filling that void of wanting to reach out and work with a team like this high end team, very dynamic, um, with the network, with the high level capacity that we've all learned and we've developed over the number of years, working with this range of clientele, like you mentioned. I felt that it was something that I was looking for and something that I saw a lot of opportunity for and a need for in the market to help individuals, especially men as they, you know, Coach Brian and Matt were talking about how they would just talk about problems that they saw going on at the gym and everyday problems. We all have the same, and we all have many different ones. But how can we get together and help those that may not think they need it, or we can provide them with some guidance based on experiences and situations that we've dealt through. So it was really just reaching out a helping hand. But yeah, I really just wanted to get back into this type of work.
Yeah, and you guys all have a lot of, just to emphasize again, on the floor experience of very different of varying kinds with different kinds of clients and with growth. And so I kind of want to now segue to, like, we've been talking every week, all of us very casually, and we jump right into the now. And so I just wanted to use the beginning of this to kind of do a little backstory, which will unfold, I'm sure, as we talk. But let's talk about like today and right now. And like Matt, like what are the challenges you faced recently? You're making a transition. You're kind of growing your brand and your business in a new direction. And it's fitness, but also personal growth and accountability. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I kind of want to get then around the circle, like everybody talk about present day stuff, like what we're dealing with and what we're confronting right now.
Yeah, George. So I think about 3 years ago, I realized that there was just a deeper level of coaching that I wanted to regularly be involved in with my clients. Part of that was just an outgrowth of the men's group that I'd been running, and the realization from those experiences that integrating health and fitness, physical health and fitness, with deeper emotional work and spiritual work led to just a lot more fulfillment for me as a coach. And also for me, I saw results from my clients where they were really moving the needle on their lives. And that kind of also ran up against a feeling of I think, kind of reached a high plateau, but a plateau of development as a group fitness coach, and was feeling kind of penned in and limited in how I could grow in that regard. And so eventually, I thought perhaps the growth that I was looking for would be something that I could do as an employee at the gym that I was at, and came to understand over the last year and a half that really the growth that I was looking for was going to require me to step away and to become more entrepreneurial and find that growth and expansion in something that I was going to pursue as my own vision, and rather than bringing to life someone else's vision, which is typically what I've done as an employee. And so where I am today is I'm in the last couple of weeks of my full-time role at this gym, and then after that I'm going to be on my own. And I say on my own, surrounded by you guys as well, but building something new that recognizes that there's a level of growth that we can achieve through just fitness training that is great, but there's a deeper level of growth that we can unlock when we integrate that health and fitness training with emotional work and spiritual work.
Yeah, I mean, we should just open the floor, I think, but like I imagine, Brian, like that because you've been kind of out of the gym structure, but in your own quest lately to apply. I feel like you ask questions more than you do apply thing, but like in your own practice now and with the training you've done, you've been trying to incorporate the kinds of questions you've been asking of yourself and of the fitness culture. Like you're always full of the like, why do we do it this way? Like, why are we doing it this way and not this way? And like, why are we coming up against this thing? And then you'll be like, I don't know the answer, but I know that there's something we're not doing. Like that relates to fitness culture writ large, honestly.
No, it's been I think over almost a year and a half since I've actually been a part of an organization like the gym I had left. Um, Unsettling is a feeling that I think it's the best way to describe it. Unsettling first 6 to 8 months of not having a formal structure. But what came out of that feeling was the understanding that I needed to break free of being inside of a box. I know that sounds like like I'm talking about like CrossFit,
A CrossFit
but
box, yeah.
yeah, it's not necessarily
One
the
called
CrossFit
Sandbox,
box.
even. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, I look back at my experiences while I was in Santa Monica still, and I was operating in a a structure that didn't quite fit the vision that I had for how I wanted to show up for other people or how I wanted to serve. Like I feel like I was kind of experimenting with the fringe a bit, expanding my game, but also using the people around me to. It's like I needed them to sign off on, hey, I'm doing this. Does this make sense to you? Or just trying to convince them that, like, this expansion of like how I want to work with people, if that was something that made sense to them. And it just, I think with what I wanted to do and what I was doing then, I don't believe it was like anything groundbreaking. It was just different. And I think I was trying to align that with a structure that, others follow because it perceivingly had worked or continues to work. Coming into Oak Park, I felt like the constraints were kind of loosened a bit, or the chains were loosened a bit. But then I started to realize that I needed to kind of spread my wings and kind of put these ideas and just kind of work through them without feeling that there was judgment on me that I put on myself, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but I think me seeking approval from other people on how I wanted to show up, like working with you, for example, that those couple times we had conversations and we worked together one-on-one.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a step for me to just go, look, I know this is not how we do it here, but this is how I'm going to do it. And not many people were very appreciative of me stepping outside of how it was supposed to be done, meaning clearing clearing the conversation to just sit down with you was something that still to this day, like I have a hard time like trying to understand and explain. It was like we just had a conversation.
Yeah, I
You know,
mean,
the way I
context of
described it, I
that is
go,
just like, I'm a client of this gym, right? And just to put the concrete elements of it, like you work with a lot of different coaches at a gym like this, but you also might have one who's like the lead. But like if a coach sees something and they're like, I want to like talk to you about this. I see this thing you're struggling with it, and you're like, yeah, I am. I'm struggling with this part of my fitness. Well, I have ideas. Well, let's talk. Let's explore and like go down different roads and stuff. That's kind of what you and Matt are talking about. I think if we put it in like a concrete way, it's like
yeah.
working with clients to discover or uncover what their obstacles are, right?
You know, I guess this is not a formal thought that I've had, but, you know, maybe we were just all too involved in everyone's shit. You know, like maybe that was a problem because like now, it's just fast forward is I don't have to clear anything that I do with anybody. You know, if I have like a hunch and I feel something, I just go with it. But everyone that I've worked with, I can claim as my own person. You know, and you know that's interesting to me because CrossFit, or powerlifting, whatever the structure is, like I don't have to follow that. Like on any given day, I can go into the garage, the girls show up and we train, and it's like, I can just change my mind. You know, we often joke that the situation is in charge, but like here, it's like I can control the situation and I can change it. You know, I don't have to feel bad about like going off of the rails or just saying, hey, I think let's do something different today.
Yeah, Kevin and Matt, can you guys both talk a little bit about the formal constraints or the boundaries that exist on like the health and fitness, like what programming's supposed to be, what everybody's expectations are, like, because now you're talking about collaborative and expansive ideas in growth, basically.
Well, I was just going to ask Brian because you mentioned a word I know well, unsettled. And so now that you don't have those constraints, you still feel there's still some unsettled feeling inside of you because maybe you're like, oh, I don't have guardrails, so I can do whatever I want. I'm fluid, which is great. I enjoy that. But do you sometimes feel a little unsettled too as you're still navigating this? It's still fairly new. Like anytime you start something a year and a half, 2 years, it's still new. 3 years, it's still new.
It's a good point.
I'm constantly unsettled because it's constantly evolving. But I think it's a good feeling because then it sort of like keeps you.
Yes
moving.
and no. The unsettledness I think came from. Can you give me a second, bud? You can stay on your iPad, my man. The unsettled came from. Basically, I learned this. I didn't trust myself, and I was the problem.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear that.
it's me needing to convince you that tension over position is a very important concept in helping people move. And when I would describe what tension over position meant to me,
Can you describe it right now? Because maybe somebody doesn't know. Can someone describe that? I don't necessarily know.
well, it's like tension over position is the feeling of the muscles should blend, or the tension of the muscles is far more important than what the physical perception of right or wrong is. Meaning, if Kevin is squatting and he's just going up and down, that is a squat, but he can also feel pain in his back while he's doing that. So why teach a position of you need to be this low, you need to stand up straight, your back needs to be erect, your toes need to be this far out, when his back hurts every time he does it. So what if we taught people how to feel the muscles of the squat and let that dictate or decide how deep, how straight, how narrow, how wide
Heavy.
the positions are.
I love that. I love that context though that you just explained, because I know the three of you necessarily get it. Like I've had you guys coach me into that type of thing, but someone just saying tension and position I wouldn't necessarily get it.
And I needed to refine being able to explain that to people. Like I could one-on-one sit there with somebody and get them to understand the difference between being able to feel your chest here and not being able to feel it up here. If you can see that visual on screen.
Yeah.
And, oh, that makes sense. So I shouldn't have my hands on top of my shoulders. But then you have someone else saying, we want to stack the joints. And it's like, what do the joints have to do with anything? Like, I'm like, you can stack the joints and still have shoulder pain. Now, you take that one-on-one setting, you throw that person into a class, and where I just ask them to only press the bar this far in front of their body, now you're asking them to press the bar up and over their head. Now, what I asked them to do in like a one-on-one session is going against what the other coach said, because positionally, we're taught in CrossFit that straight lines, hands over your shoulder, shoulder over your hips, hips over your ankles, just to kind of quickly kind of go through like the ones and twos.
Right.
You know, like I had this issue recently. It wasn't a problem, but I have my guys, when we're pressing overhead, only press to a position where they can continue to feel their chest and their back. Dude goes into a class and then comes back and goes, oh, so-and-so told me that like I have to push my head through. And look, there are philosophies that support both. And, you know, I'm not saying my way is more right than the other. The intent is more important than the position, meaning for me, the tension is the intent. So being able to feel and be active in the range of motion became far more important as a philosophy, or as it just became important. It was important to me because the other way people were getting hurt. So to me, the way I understood it is like, what's the point in that? And I couldn't explain that to my colleagues in a way that it made sense to them. And it's like, we're saying the same thing. And I go, no, we're not. Because you keep telling this person to get lower in a squat and he keeps hurting his back. I'm telling them to stop like above or at parallel, but like you're still pushing them to go lower. So we're not saying the same thing. It's like we're measuring performance differently. And again, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Matt, this gets to goals and intentions and like building habits or specific programs, and it's not just fitness now. Like around, this is the core, one of the core things about like what we're doing and what Catalyst is about and what you've been doing in men's groups too, is identifying goals. We were talking last week, all of us, about this, of like, what are you trying to accomplish? What's strong to you? You asked that question, like, and I kind of want to give you the floor to talk or dig deeper into that and explain it.
Yeah. I know I've shared this with you guys before, but something that my granddad used to say that really stuck with me is he would say, always know why you're doing what you're doing. In essence, what's the point? What's the context for what you're doing? And that question is like the baseline question for me with any of what we're doing with physical training. That's the context that you're bringing to the gym. That's the context that the training needs to fit into. And a lot of the coaching that I do with clients is to ask that question, like, why are you squatting? Not just, let's say, to get stronger, but how does that squatting to get stronger fit into the context of your life? What is it that you're in the gym for in the first place? So for me, like, all of the questions really come back to that. How is the time that we're spending in the gym and the effort we're putting in, what is that connected to that's deeper and more meaningful for someone than just coming into the gym and ticking the box that I did exercise or I got stronger?
And then like extends to a diet choice, or like, I want to get like any choice, any life choice or goal.
Well, I mean, even like what Brian was saying, it extends to exercise selection. It extends to the volume, the load, the range of motion, the intensity of any movement patterns that you want someone to engage in or someone's looking to engage in. It relates to the goals someone has in the gym and how that relates to goals they have for themselves outside of the gym. Yeah. I mean, it's the question of questions. Why are we doing what we're doing? What does this, what is the point of this? You have only so much time and energy in your life. And so the things that you're putting your time and energy into, are they serving some purpose? Are they moving you in a direction that you have identified is important for yourself? And I think that's where a lot of people haven't really, maybe they're not allowed to, or don't think they're allowed to, or just have never thought to ask themselves, for what purpose am I training? For what purpose am I doing anything? Oftentimes, we get a lot of information from outside of us, from family, from society, from culture, about what we're supposed to be doing or what direction our lives are supposed to go. And we can easily get caught up in just following. Is that what we're told, or that's what we think is expected of us? And then you can end up doing squats that hurt your back. And this is for someone who wants to be a competitive swimmer. And maybe that's an absurd example, but just as a way of thinking about it. Or you have someone who's showing up in the gym and throwing themselves against the wall every day, like they're some sort of performance athlete, but then their life doesn't actually involve recovering like a performance athlete. They're working 14, 15-hour days. They're working 6 days a week. They're sleeping 5 hours a night. And it's like, oh, why are you showing up to throw down in CrossFit 5 days a week, 6 days a week, when this is the context that you're trying to fit that into?
Yeah, I mean, I've been those things in some cases, and I like articulating that this idea that intentionality kind of removes the stuckness that a lot of people feel, and they don't recognize the stuckness. And I think they're just feeling it, and they don't understand that one of the ways out is intentionality and goal. In your own ways, I feel like you guys have all kind of addressed your own, like, I'm moving in this direction, I'm making this change. Like Kevin,
I
you've
think
made
that,
a lot of life changes.
well,
Like,
yeah, I think that's why all Matt, Brian, and I, um, over the last couple of years, we've sensed this urge for change and evolution, whether it be um, with coaching, maybe family, maybe relocation, maybe adding another profession onto, you know, into our lives, and then we're like, oh well, let's bring people along as we go through this. You know, we're learning a lot. Like this is pivotal. I'm not talking about midlife crisis here. I'm talking about, oh shit, we've like let a couple of years go by where we were ourselves and we weren't chasing our truest selves and pursuit and aligned with visions and passions and all that. I think we could all say that that's sort of where we're at. And it's like, all right, well, it's time for a change. Let's do it with intentionality, discipline, accountability, with grace. And then, you know, we can sort of, we're not sheep anymore. I felt like a sheep for a while with society, like Matt, like you said, like just society, and just like I just got to get another job for a paycheck. Just got to get no. And once you sort of let go of that and become become confident, Brian, in yourself, and it's a total mindset and energy shift for the good. And so we're going through this, and then with Catalyst, I think it's okay. We're doing it. How can we show others that they can do it too, in and outside of the gym?
I want to say, I do want to share that one thing that Oak Park gave me was this runway to do it differently. And that's to really lean hard into how we define what a relationship is in the gym. And, you know, I remember one of the guys, the headmasters of, is that what they call them? The floor masters that lead L1s and L2s. Was it Matt Logan, I think is his name? Or Logan?
So just context on that. Maybe later eventually we'll throw up little blurbs when we're talking about something that's like just so you know. But right now we can always remove it. But I'm gonna press on the things where you guys know everything. But there may be people out there who want to learn more about fitness. They're like, what the fuck is an L1? Like,
well, I bring this up for this reason. For this reason,
word, Brian.
Flow Masters. I've never even heard that one, but it sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. But so we believe that we are developing humans through developing the relationship. And I promise you this, because I've gone to other gyms and I've worked at other gyms in the last couple weeks, well, in the last year, and everyone thinks that they're doing that. And if perception is reality, and they perceive themselves to having these deep types of conversations, or they think that they know their clients well, then they're doing that. I just don't think that they're getting to know their clients the way that I'm interested in getting to know my clients. It's yes, you hold space and you listen to what they're saying and what they're going through, but it takes a different kind of coach to listen to that, understand it, and then do something with it. Because I think when Matt and I talk, Matt talks from a different perspective than I do. He's looking at how he's going to help them in their life outside of the gym. And it's not that I don't think that I'm doing that. I believe that my way into that is part conversation, but it's very physical at the same time. You know, I use what I learn from watching you work out, gives me an angle at where like I can insert how I'm going to help you in this moment. And then later, through all that understanding and that data that you're giving me based on how you show up, I can use that to help you understand yourself. And because I feel I can do that, you trust me enough to have a deeper conversation later, if that's something that we need to do. You know, and I think Matt does a better job than I do of being able to get there through a conversation maybe sooner or, without the physical part. You know, I think that's why the men's groups that he does are so successful, because he's already built this trust with them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, before we as we wrap up, I think that we want to emphasize, or I'd like us to emphasize, that we are all kind of on our own journeys together of growth. And part of what we're doing here is explaining. We're trying to take the hood off as we're running the car and show people, like, here's how the car runs for us. Here's what we're confronting. Is it useful to you or not? We want to help other people run their cars smooth too. Like, that's kind of the conceit here. And so I don't know if before we kind of wrap up, anybody else wants to throw anything in on that note, but just like, what are we after here, and what are we going to do each week as we do this? We're going to keep having this type of conversation, but I think we're going to get into some of the specifics of the things we're confronting, right?
Yes. I like the car hood now.
You know, I'll jump in. I can jump in here or jump back in. I think it's important for even us as coaches, as trainers, we have a responsibility to do the work that we're asking our clients to do. And part of that is being clearer on what it is we want and where it is that we want to go. You know, because I can sit here in front of all of you today and, pretend that I have it all figured out. The truth is I don't. You know, I'm just kind of like now in a place where I'm very happy and I'm having a really good time doing what I'm doing. But I honestly didn't see me coaching and showing up this way, the way that I'm currently doing it in this season. Like, I thought all my clients would be men that had kids and they were roughly around the same age as me. And it's quite opposite. It's like I have a group of men that are older or old enough to be my dad. And then I have two groups of women that are the same age as me. I don't know if it's somehow attracted more of a feminine energy. But I mean, that's just where I am, and I'm having a good time doing it. So, I know where I want to go, and I want to work. I want to work with people, and I want to help people. Whether that's physically, it's mentally, maybe we work more towards the emotional part. But like I did have this idea of what I wanted to do. It's just the avatars are different.
Matt, do you want to throw anything on that?
Well, I think Brian said it really well that I think we have a responsibility to engage in the same work that we're asking our clients to engage in. And for me, that means getting really clear on what I want, uh, who I want to become, and what I'm willing to do to get there. And, something that Brian had shared with me years back that's been super insightful and really valuable in this process is the idea of interoception. Basically, that we have certain feelings in the body that we have to learn to identify what those feelings equate to. Like a baby cries when a baby is hungry, it cries when it has a dirty diaper, it cries when it hurts, it cries when it's lonely, and they have to learn what those different feelings equate to. And this is part of the role that parents play in helping kids identify what these different pains are. But there's more to it as well. I feel like Brian learning to trust himself, my feeling the need for more freedom and more space to expand as a coach. These are also pains or feelings that are in the body that we've got to learn to listen to and be curious about and dig into. And so I hope this continues to be an exploration of the journeys we're all going on, because I certainly don't have it all figured out. I'm not pretending that I do, and I don't think that's necessary for a great coach to have it all figured out. I think if someone's selling you that product or selling that image, there's probably something off. And so I hope that, yeah, as we take the hood off the car while the car is going 100 miles an hour down the freeway, hopefully the doors and the tires don't also fall off. But
If they
yeah,
do,
I mean,
it'll be interesting.
well, yeah,
I'll just add, like, as we wrap, like, you guys have all coached me at different times. The coaching that I've gotten has it's beyond like, what's it like to do a new skill you've never done, or how hard is it to accomplish Fran, or whatever the hell the thing on the board is. It's gone way deeper, and my curiosity about why and how it applies to the rest of my life has definitely led me to wanting to do this, but do it every week and expose it, or show it and share it with other people, because being a man, and being fit and healthy is not easy. Or is there a clear direct line anymore anywhere for us as we grow through it and get old and whatever? So we're hopefully providing people with some kind of modeling, and as we go through it ourselves and confront the issues. But like, this is invaluable information. You guys are elite coaches, so this is a fun process for me, and I'm excited to share it with the world as we continue to do it.